Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Life is made up of many gorgeous moments. Cherish them all, big and small, with Blue Nile. Whether it's for yourself or a loved one, Blue Nile's unrivaled selection of expertly crafted fine jewelry and statement pieces help make all your moments sparkle. Blue Nile's experts are on hand to guide you, and their diamond guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Celebrate a life well lived in the most radiant way and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
O'Reilly. Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbifs Rugby podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the Top 14, ProD2, Nationals, town, cities, bars, restaurants, brilliant fans of France that make the game so bloody brilliant. I'm Richard, I'm joined as ever by Rob. Both of us have been feeling a little bit sorry for ourselves over the last couple of days after the highs of a strong weekend. But Rob, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I am just about human, thanks to a few days of no alcohol and quite a lot of sweating it out on bikes. But it was necessary. There were a lot of toxins that needed to leave the body, and I've actually felt like I could kind of function today, which is certainly better than it was yesterday.
Good to know. And
how are you? I think I've lucked out in the fact that I'm not that busy with work, whereas it sounds like you've been thrown straight back into the mixer.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a baptism of fire back in, although not as bad as I was talking to a colleague I work with today who's just come back from a week in Ibiza. And there's I think been feeling the pinch a little bit more than I have, but yeah, it's been a busy couple of days. We've got some quite exciting like client events over the next couple of days, but it does mean that a little bit more riding on Monday, Tuesday than perhaps there normally might be. But regardless, fabulous weekend in France, various places, and we're going to save it, right? We're going to save the gory details for a special edition of the pod later in the week.
Yeah, I think we're satisfying the needs of our listeners first by kind of diving into the real topical stuff. One topical area is also the La Nuit de Rugby, the kind of awards ceremony for last season, which happened Monday evening. So we're recording this on Tuesday evening. That will also talk about the results and my strong opinions on some of those results, good and bad. We'll do that on the bonus episode as well. But this one is going to be focused on reviewing the games, previewing next week's games, and just state of play in the respective leagues after yet another dramatic weekend where the trajectory of certain sides is kind of indeterminable. There just seems to be so much fluctuation in teams' performances across both leagues. Some teams, I would say, are struggling. And should we start there, Rich, with the solitary, winless side in the top 14, the game we were at?
Let's do it, yeah. We were at Castres on Saturday, and it's a thoroughly enjoyable day, it must be said. But less so if you're a Perpignan fan, and less so if you're a Perpignan fan getting yobbed by a elderly gentleman in front of us for having the audacity to to clap, I think, once or something like that. But maybe we'll get onto that later. Castres 27-12 probably doesn't quite, the scoreline in the end doesn't quite tell the story of how it was quite nip and tuck for a while this game.
No, and especially the fact that they did get that third try in the last minute to secure that attacking bonus point. Perpignan tryless, so only 3 tries needed for the bonus point. Yeah, and that's so for that to be a 5-0 in terms of league points, it's felt very unrepresentative of the game itself, because it was to and fro. It was completely kind of not on a knife's edge, but it was pretty even. It was back and forth. I think Castres had a lot of possession, didn't they? They had about the 50-minute mark, they'd had about 60-65% possession. Not all of it used particularly well, I have to say. From Perpignan's point of view, just to finish off on them, yes, they didn't have a lot of ball. Yes, they were pointless after this game, but they played pretty well. Like, they defended brilliantly at times, which to concede 3 tries is pretty tough. They have flashes of brilliance from certain individual players. To be tryless, I think, is a real concern. I think.
Yeah.
And they didn't look terrible, though. That was the thing. They didn't look like a team that was kind of bereft of ideas or had nothing in attack. Yeah, I just don't know. Something's not quite right there.
Just looked a little bit out of form. Maybe just kind of 5-10% off. And I think, I know Castres haven't had like a flying start to the year. Obviously they beat Racing in the last minute, but I think they've they just didn't quite have that incisiveness. The defense thought was excellent. We were saying, I rarely think of a game where so many people got genuinely clattered in like big one-on-one tackles. Like, I can't remember who it was, but Jack Goodhue, Goodhue, all black no less, got genuinely cut in half. And there was quite a lot of that sort of Brian Lima-esque walloping.
I can't remember a game. Well, I guess it's different when you're at a game to when you watch it on TV, but I can't remember being at a game in the last few years that of all the games that we've been to watch where there have been so many oohs from the crowd, where there's just another monster hit going in. One other tackle on Jack Goodhue that was sensational was the try saver from Pasola Tuolangi. I think they then scored from it, but he just appears from nowhere. A second row of that size, and let's be honest, seeing him in the flesh, that size is quite a lot of size. To mow down from behind, someone like Jack Goodhue is quit phenomenal. It was like the Courtney Laws tackle from a few weeks ago against Saxville, wasn't it? It kind of just appears and just try for all money, and then some big unit just snuffs it out.
Yeah, it was impressive stuff. Who else impressed you for Castres?
Oh, I know there's someone that really impressed you for Castres. I think generally they had all that possession in the first half, and they were just a little bit clunky. I think that's actually probably Perpignan's problem as well. They've got quite a few new combinations, which perhaps haven't clicked yet, but Castres seem to be perhaps slightly unsure of the best halfback combination. And I think Louis Lebrun, who's had a good start to the season, wasn't great from an execution and decision-making perspective. Whereas Pierre Popelin, who we saw looking quite ginger in the market the next day, he was brilliant when he came on. And I think he gave them that kind of attacking edge at 10. Goodhue put in a hell of a shift. He was getting smoked, but he was just everywhere. And I really like the T2. He looks like because he is a ball player. He's played fly half for Fiji. He can kind of do everything, and he gets himself involved the whole time. I really like that combo with him and Goodhue. But I guess the standout player for Castres was probably Abraham Papali'i, was the real star performer.
Yeah, he was big, aggressive, found himself on the ball. Well, found himself near the ball, both sides a lot. He looked sort of maybe not cut above, but he looked like a guy who was having an absolute worldie of a game. And although it didn't always quite come off, Christian Ambadiang, there are a couple of sparks where he looked like he could do something that no one else could. He just got hauled down.
Quite something to look at in the flesh, isn't he?
Fairly athletic bloke, I think it's fair to say. quick off the mark. And the Castres fans have taken him under their wing. I think that was his second league game. I think he might have played a bit in pre-season. You'd think he'd been there sort of 15 years, the reception any time he was near the ball. Yeah, but they looked good. And I think on another day against a slightly more or a slightly less interested defence, it might have been a bigger score. They look quite sharp.
Just on Papali'i, like, I kind of didn't know that much about him. I feel like whenever I see a Aussie or a Kiwi back rower in the top 14 or ProD2 that hasn't played international rugby, you're always a bit like, oh, well, they can't be that good. But actually, quite a lot of them are. And he was kind of everything you would want from number 8. Such a willing ball carrier, dragging people with him, both sides of the ball, really good. And I thought the player you wanted to talk about was another person we saw in the market the following day, but Florian van der Berg.
He was very good. Yeah, I think he got hooked. Did he get hooked recently? Or I think he might have got rotated out and then back on. But he was, because he's sort of listed as I think what I was impressed by is one. He had an incredibly solid game. He was good at the line out. Really like strong ball in hand. But I think he's listed sort of 6'5", which for a second row is, I mean, it's not short, is it? But in the kind of land of giants, it's not exactly massive. And I think given as well, I think one of the reasons I'm so impressed as well, given how much you would assume, and they are going to miss someone like Tom Staniforth, who's basically been the backbone of that pack for the last couple of years. He was great. I just thought he threw himself about everywhere. It's exactly the kind of performance replacing someone like that who is essentially like a out and out workhorse. And he gave us a little nod in the morning in the market as well, but wouldn't stay for a bit.
He knew. Guillaume Ducat, the other second row, was also great. Their line out was brilliant. Generally, both teams' line out was pretty good, but Cass was great. And just a shout out for the 2 English tight heads, both of whom I thought had pretty good games. Brooksy had the Catalan cow. He had a few good rumbles. Won a few scrum penalties. Will Collier looked pretty solid at scrum time as well. Up against Georgie Berrier, who I think is a great player, a loose head for Perpignan. So yeah, 2 good games, and we did see Will Collier chop a pint that was handed to him from the crowd post-match. So nice to know he's bringing a bit of Englishness Rosbifness over to France.
Yeah, successful day out for him. Shall we maybe a quick word on a bit further north, a bit of history up in Brittany. Van got their first ever top 14 win. We saw a few highlights of this in the cash bodega afterwards. We thought it might happen, but I think for Van, it's I guess that proof point, having one under the belt, is massive for them, and to all intents and purposes, look pretty good value for it as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. If it was a slight reversal to the mean for Leon after kind of a very good winner against what is, let's be honest, not a brilliant side in Montpellier, and then a really good home win against Bordeaux, we aren't expecting them to be doing much away from home, and this, I think, kind of underlined that kind of reverted type. Thing about the Van tries were quite forward orientated, which was interesting, that they can kind of muscle up well against a physical pack like Leon's. This game, however, has to be about one player who last week I said I was a little bit concerned about some of the fundamentals of his game. And he had an interesting game. We saw the best and worst of David Niliashvili. He set up the first try, I think it was, certainly set up one try,
which was so good.
Yeah, it's just so beautifully done. Like a bit of in and out, pass out the tackle. It's just, Sebastian Taufik-Benua finding himself on the out on the left wing as well. So fair play to him. But yeah, lovely bit of attacking work, bit of power, bit of strength. He then had quite simply something unprecedented, I think. I don't think I've ever seen that in a game.
Basically an own goal. It's the closest I think I've ever seen to an own goal in rugby.
He picks he's forced back into the corner. He is actually kind of quite under quite a lot of pressure. Like, it's not just a case of, well, why didn't he just boot it out? He is on his own try line, probably like 5-10 meters in from touch, and he's got a player coming towards him. He does the David Niliashvili thing of just trying to go for it, tries to use his gas to kind of get outside them and create a bit of space. He then passes the ball crossfield, and I don't know who to, because it never reaches its intended recipient. It hits the post. It hits the cushion, doesn't it? And just drops down, ready for the Van player to swoop.
Yeah,
like an extraordinary try. It is, as you say, Rich, it's a comedy own goal. But then he also got on the end as a support line for what would have been a brilliant try that got chalked off, I think, for a foot in touch, which was basically in exactly the same spot that he'd picked up that ball before the own goal, which would have been quite a nice little redemption. But I think that was chalked off for foot in touch or being tackled in touch. He then also very nearly held up the ball for the last try. So ultimately quite a disappointing game for David Niliashvili, although it could have been completely different. But for a bit of a few inches here and there, on some of those they'd shaved the post correctly.
Either way though, fantastic for Van, and as you say, good to see they can mix it. Lyon maybe reverting to type, but also a team in a bit of form, so no mean feat. I guess not a huge amount to say about the early kickoff on Saturday. Montpellier Toulouse kind of went as we'd expected. Toulouse ran out winners by 9 points. A couple of a bit of a rogue Thomas Ramos try where he kind of kicked it off the floor, which was quite cool. And a lovely
some really rogue tries this weekend, because there's one in ProD2 that we'll get onto. But I guess I can't remember. Do you think that was an intentional throw off the top?
No, not onto his boot. No, it could be, but I don't.
Because I was trying to think why he was, because it goes over the back of the line now, and I was trying to think why he's there quicker than anyone else, but also why he's not there to catch it. Why is he there just to control it? And
because it's a yard inaccurate, and it's happened to work out quite well.
Yeah.
Only other real thing of note in this game is a lovely try by Leo Coley, and Stuart Hogg starting to fight as well. Because I guess if you're on bail for multiple offences, you may as well just kind of rack them up, see what you can get away with.
He does shove Ramos a long old way. It's quite an aggressive push. There's nothing clear from the TV audience as to what caused it.
No.
I think it might just been a classic, like, not giving the ball sort of thing, but Hogg, it does start an almighty kerfuffle, which is next to the crowd, and I think I saw Jack Willish handing off a crowd member of the crowd, not aggressively, but just pushing them out the way,
extracting himself.
Yeah, that try from Virat Kohli was brilliant. It's Cardo, who I think was brilliant in the access match. The angle he cuts for that try off set piece is brilliant. Looks like Montpellier scrum went pretty well, but it just didn't look like there was much quality there, and Toulouse kind of always knew that they were able to win penalties here or there. They did have T-shirts on before the game that, as they ran out, that said "Always our superhero." Montpellier did, and I didn't see who it was about. I've got no idea. But
no, I didn't.
Presumably not Stuart Hogg, or
I wouldn't have thought so.
Or Putter, yeah.
No. Moving on, a game we did see a bit more of, albeit in an Irish bar. Another one. There's always one to find somewhere in Castres. Bordeaux Bègles beat Racing 52-34. So that's another fairly steady haul of points for them. Again, an 18-point margin that does not tell the story of the gulf between these two sides. I think for me, we've said it so many times, but when it clicks, the Bordeaux backline is astonishing, and it does look like they're playing in fast forward, and this is what it looked like. Like, was it a hat trick? I think both Biel, Bure, and Penaud.
Penaud, yeah, and
they both just looked like they could score at any point, like completely unstoppable throughout this. It was pretty phenomenal.
it's almost like when they're in this form that every member of the back line is going to score a try as well. So I think Luku didn't score one, Buros didn't score one. I don't think Moafana put some massive hits, but they all just look like they're going to kind of. It's like when you're at school and you're playing football against, the team that is really crap. And like I played in defence, and there was always certain schools that I knew that if we played them, I could kind of weasel my way up front and kind of get myself a goal, and that would be my only goal of the season because you knew you'd be all right because the opposition was so crap. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like they're all just sniffing around because at some point they know they're going to get on the score sheet at some point. I mean, yeah, Racing actually started this game all right. They were 3-0 up after 7 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, they've conceded 4 tries. It's just the Jalibert one is brilliant. Like, it's just a beautifully weighted kick. He just looks, I don't know, he's got so much attitude. When he's on the ball, he's just like, you get the sense that he believes he can do anything, and he quite often will do it or will try it. And if he kind of goes down one alleyway and it's closed, he'll be like, right, well, I know there's another alleyway I can, go back. And I think that try actually kind of made a misstep and then actually kind of chipped over the top, and it all opened up for him. Just a brilliant, brilliant player. Few other things to talk about. Well, actually, no, one of the Louis Bielbarré tries is outrageous because it's effectively comes from 95 metres, doesn't he? Someone boots it from the 5 metre line. Sam James picks it up and gives off a bold offload. For a player that makes very, very few mistakes, it's a mistake.
It was just that sort of night a little bit, wasn't it, for Racing? I think some of the reaction to this has maybe been a little bit more unfair than it needs to be, because I know they haven't had a phenomenal start to the year, but Bordeaux have done this to some pretty good teams, and they've done it quite a lot. And therefore, I don't think it's necessarily the one that you say it's all fallen apart. Sam James, as you say, the week before we were singing his praises as just being such a fantastic rugby player, and they're all a little bit scrambled
on that, because obviously one of those teams they have destroyed is Saracens. Owen Farrell has conceded over 150 points in his last 3 games at Stade Chaban-Delmas, which is extraordinary.
That's some going.
He also, on Faz, he wasn't kicking sticks, which I've got no idea why. You would have thought he's kind of cruising into the kicking role ahead of Nolan Garrick, but
yeah, that's an interesting niggle, or I don't know.
Niggle. He did miss quite a few the week before, but I can't believe that's enough for Lanny to hand over the kicking duties to Le Garrec, because we know that if he was going to hand over the kicking duties to someone, I think we know who it would be.
Yeah, I'm starting to, again, he had a pretty dire time of it, didn't he? Poor Dan Lancaster. Anyone can have a bad game, but I think against the backdrop of some of the perhaps not entirely unjust, if not criticism, then questioning of his sudden promotion to starting at 12 ahead of Chavancy, Tuasova, Sam James, whoever else you want to stick in there. You do feel like you're watching a bloke who's about to make a mistake quite a lot, and that is not a great position to be in, and it can't be good for him either, because he must be feeling it. Did Stuart Lancaster just cut off my mic?
Yeah, Stuart Lancaster cut off your mic, I think. He heard. He's all powerful. And what was brilliant about that was, I think now you're right, like people are looking for his mistakes because of the backdrop. That it was just the brilliant fact that every time he made a mistake, or I think he was subbed at one point and then had to come back on, the camera pans immediately to Stuart Lancaster looking emotionless, deadpan, trying not to give anything away. But they've got to do. I think they do have to. I think they should take him out of the spotlight for a bit, just to help him out a bit.
I think so, and I don't think any of us expected him to be starting in 3 massive games at the beginning of the year.
No, we joked about it, thinking that it definitely was thinking, that's what you do, you bring in your son. But actually it has happened. The fact it has happened is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Final thing on this game, we were slightly debating this in the pub. after a few beers, but I don't think that red card for Lockie Swinton should ever be a red card. It's a tip tackle, but there's so much mitigation there. It's not even that dangerous. It feels very harsh. There's another player involved, which significantly changes the dynamics of the situation. And I think, that should never be a red card. I was amazed it was even a yellow.
Yeah.
Game's gone soft.
Game's gone soft. I don't think the game has gone soft after sitting through that Castres Perpignan match.
Yeah, that's true.
Righto, best of the rest. Anything you want to call out? La Rochelle hammered Pau.
Pau, not a strong team out. La Rochelle, not first choice team. First starts of the season for Dulan and Antonio, which is cool. Pau's defence was fairly dreadful. There were just gaps everywhere. Jack Knoll played really well again. Dylan Lay scored a hat-trick of crossfield
kick tries,
which is that I think is indicative of a pretty poor defence, if you ask me. Whether it was also due to perhaps a bit of inexperience of Aaron Grandidier, a sevens player, perhaps hasn't played that much for 15s. One of 3 Olympic champions to start on the wing in the top 14 this season. We saw one of them, Jefferson Lee Joseph, Perpignan, and not Swan Rabaj. Ryan Rabaj at Toulon was the other. But Pau, they just looked
a bit insipid.
It wasn't a strong team. So I think if you're going to throw a game, La Rochelle away, fine. Claire, talking of other teams that went away and didn't look very good, Bayonne are the other one. 2 teams quite close to our hearts, my hearts, Bayonne and Pau. Bayonne also do not look good. They were barely in these highlights that I saw. And the fact that the Clermont tries, the first 3 were all tight exchanges forward. So you've got Thomas Sate scoring one of them, and I'm going to get the wrong Akaladze scored the other 2. So you've got second round of prop scoring 2. That's actually one of Bayonne's good strengths, is their forward pack, and for a team to kind of outmuscle you in the close quarter stuff is concerning, given how little they've created. The 4th try, however, was the complete opposite.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's also comes from like a bit of loose, open, expansive play, but go on. You can talk through it.
Well, it's just the ball. It was Newsom, the Clermont fullback in the corner. There's just a lovely bit of interplay, and then Jeannot, who I know we've spoken about quite a lot, and he's one of this crop of seemingly endless, brilliant French nines. It's just the pass is kind of hard to explain without being able to do it justice, because the gap for him to get it between the kind of the fullback and like the tracking back defender it's like proper eye of the needle, and it is so fast and flat. Like it's the sort of thing, I don't know, you might think a Finn Russell might pull off, or I don't know, just it's just Dupont. It's just an amazing bit of skill. Can't quite do it justice, but it's pretty staggering.
A lovely bit of interplay from what I thought was Raka, but Raka was there. It was actually Peter Gus Soakula, so a bit of that was a kind of no look basketball, not quite basketball, but no look, one-handed flick, and an outstanding finish from diving finish in the corner from Newsom. Is the complete opposite of the other 3 tries.
That's going to be up there try the season. I think it's ridiculous.
Martok for Bayonne scored a lovely try. Good feet, good bit of gas. 2 things I didn't know. I just thought it was a bit of a straight lines basics forward, but it was actually quite a nice try. But that was not enough to deny Clermont the bonus point. Nowhere near enough for Bayonne. They've got issues, I think.
I think so. And another team to just round it off who have not had the start to the year, we'd think. Stade Francais lost at home to Toulon on Sunday night. This
was a dreadful game.
I think by this point on the trip, I was done. I was completely out of. But you did watch a bit of this in the airport for a delayed flight, which is always fun. 10-14 wouldn't suggest a classic, but
good thing to know is that Premier Sports works in France. I assume it works in the EU because it kind of has to, I guess. But good to know that when you are on your travels, you can watch Top 14, as I did. I think it was pretty wet, but it wasn't, second half anyway, it wasn't wet enough to cause the lack of accuracy from both teams that there was. I think Carbonell missed a couple of kicks. One that I saw was certainly it's pretty easy. He seems to play terribly whenever he comes up against Toulon, which I know is his kind of former club. Quite a lot of players playing against former clubs this weekend, I noticed. But they were just poor, and Toulon were slightly less poor. And there's not really much else to say. It's a great win away for Toulon. They had a huge, well,
It really is.
what looked like a pretty healthy supporters group as well up there. And they kind of had a real nice moment after the game. Big celebrations for Toulon. So I think they recognise that how important away wins are, and certainly an away win at what you would have thought is going to be a top 6 contender. But yeah, it's concerning times for Stad to be in the position that they are. And I guess only the fact that the weather meant that they didn't concede a boatload of tries this week. But
yeah, it's been a bit of an indifferent start. I mean, it's early days, but they're not a side I thought were going to be sort of languishing a little bit towards the. I mean, they've won one game, so not languishing, but a little bit towards the end of the table. All right, next weekend, there's only one place to start, I think, isn't it? That's Sunday night fixture, Toulouse-Bordeaux.
oh,
They're going to be fired up, aren't they, both sides, and particularly Bordeaux after what happened last time out, which I don't think we need to discuss. Probably before the watershed as well, so we can't talk about it too much. But they'll be after some retribution. And then elsewhere, I think there's some quite what feel like important games already. And I think particularly to Bayonne host Montpellier. That's a big one for like both sides, I think, isn't it? Both not looking in any sort of form. And then the other big one is Perpignan, Clermont. Perpignan rooted to the bottom at the moment. They'll be hoping.
This was the game I was at last year, which Clermont
it was,
despite being second best for large swathes. Given because they're not going to have Oviedo still, Perpignan, which it feels like they need. Clermont send a good team. I'd be fancying Clermont. They look pretty powerful. Not that Perpignan didn't look powerful. They look pretty good up front. Perhaps just lacking a bit of go forward. Clermont feel like the sort of team that might be able to snuff them out quite as easily as Castres did. Good line out, good scrum, good pack. Yeah, I'm not feeling too hopeful for Perpignan. The other one that feels like starting to be a big game is a couple of others actually, but Pau against a team who were very good away from home last year in Stad, but at this point in time, that feels like a very winnable game for Pau. They could be getting Stad at either a really bad time or a really good time. From my perspective, I hope they do win. And then I guess the other one is Toulon. Sorry, not Toulon. Racing La Rochelle. Which again, so that will be in Créteil again. And Racing, if they lose that one, they're 1 from 4 as well. They've had a tough start in terms of fixtures, but it's not looking good, is it? If they're 1 from 4, and I think La Rochelle are kind of the team that for Racing are a little bit there. They're just not a good matchup for Racing, just because of the amount of the bulk of that forward pack.
A team sort of on the up again, it feels, La Rochelle. They're end of last season, start of this, just starting to tick a little bit more, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then elsewhere, so Toulon, Vannes and Lyon Castres compete the set. So it's, as ever, pretty juicy round of fixtures. Shall we leave it there, nip back with a bit of ProD2 and then say our farewells? Beautiful. Okay, listeners will be very disappointed to know that there was no National last weekend. So National Nook is taking a break for this week, but we'll be back with flying colours next. So we're going to have to skip straight to ProD2. Some interesting results again. But should we start? Do you want to start Thursday or Friday night, Rob?
Let's do Thursday
night,
because then we can recover with some actual decent analysis about Friday, because our analysis of Thursday is going to be slightly limited.
Grenoble v Dax watched in part in a slightly dingy bar in Limoges, in kind of the centre of France,
on a student night.
On a student night, which was less than ideal, to be honest. But we found somewhere to watch a decent chunk of it, and it was tight. Like, Dax have had a great start to the year, couldn't quite hold out here, but nevertheless are showing they're anything but having that second season syndrome.
Yeah, and I think in the context of the previous game between these two at Stade des Alpes, where I think it was 59-10 or something in the barrage, for them to kind of muscle up and just miss out. There was a last minute kick, just missed out on the losing bonus point, but certainly not damaging in the same way that the barrage game was. Dax did score another outrageous try, not quite unprecedented, I don't think, but not far off. A 40+ meter drop goal attempt. Yeah. 40 meter drop goal attempt. Hits the post and it lands perfectly in the arms of the Dax player. Magical stuff. It's hard to know. It's hard to. There have been similar ones, but it just there's no one near him as well. It's just like it just plops into his hands and there's no one near him. Great chase.
Through.
Yeah.
And go to the top of tries of the season alongside the Van one with the Niniashvili assist. But yes, Grenoble march on. Some tight ones elsewhere. So Montauban.
Just on that, pretty sure we saw Steve Blanc-Mapaz in the crowd at Grenoble. He popped up on TV towards the end, so obviously it's not far away. If he's probably hasn't moved if he's playing in Lyon. But yeah, nice to see him supporting his old club.
Steve still there even when he's not playing, still looking for that. However many appearances it was in a single season last year.
Yeah, I mean, they must be missing him, because to have someone that's played that many games with that many minutes, you're going to miss a player of that influence. But I would say Grenoble, it was tight, but it did look like they were comfortable in a way. It looked like they were kind of always going to win that game. It was just a case of how much and how quickly they were going to kind of secure it, but it felt like they were largely in control. I thought anyway.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So they're now 3 from 4. A team that who were pipped away just north of Toulouse. Biarritz lost 26 points to 29 away at Montauban. So their perfect start has been blotted ever so slightly, but bonus point there. A team that did get their season off to some sort of start, and slightly unexpected one given the fortunes of the two teams thus far, was Mont-de-Marsan pulled it out at, unfortunately, Sawyer-Angoulême. So that's fair to say, I think, a pretty serious result given how Saxby has started and how far off the pace Mont-de-Marsan have looked. Yeah, that's twice in a few years. That was the game we went to, wasn't it? Was Saxby Stade Montois, and it was a bit of a humping that day. So today maybe we're just bad for them.
Sucks a bit of momentum out of the Saxby kind of. Yeah.
Agen sort of coming back into things. Decent win at home to Nevers, who is struggling, and Colomiers held out, who I feel like Colomiers have had a pretty tidy start to the season. They're up 3 for 4 in third as well. Beat Valence Romans, who are starting to basement boy it, unfortunately. Really tough start to the season for them. I think we felt at the outset it might be tricky, but they're finding it tough. And I think sometimes good to see an old kind of real ProD2 style beat down. Nice going to Aurillac was always going to be a little bit tricky. It's a long way, different ends of the scale in terms of budget, experience, weather, quality. And they got spanked, had 50 put on them, unfortunately for Nice.
I would just on Colomiers, I would temper the excitement slightly by saying I think they've had a relatively easy start to the season. They've not played any of last year's top 6. So they've not had. I know they played Dax away, but they've not played any of the big boys really. Ourillac, Brive, Grenoble. They've not played Provence. They've not played any of them. So perhaps temper the excitement on Colomiers, but they've done about as well as might have been expected with the fixtures they've got, and that's a pretty promising start, I would say, generally.
Yeah, for sure. Béziers beat Provence pretty comfortably. Yeah,
it was pretty tight until about 65 minutes, and then Béziers scored a couple of tries towards the end, and actually that gets them the bonus point, which is a pretty good win, I reckon, to beat Provence with bonus point at home, especially considering the budget discrepancies. We now know that Béziers aren't on the biggest budget. ProD2 player of the season, Samuel Marquez played pretty well, slotted his kicks. I guess the one thing for Provence is a couple of maul tries and kind of up close. And I think you referenced a few weeks ago that perhaps outmuscled a little bit at scrum time. So despite all those big names, and they did have a pretty good team out. There were a lot of the names playing. So Inga now, brilliant season last year. Thomas Francis, Isaac Rodder, Josh Tyrrell. They all played. It wasn't like they've sent the shags and therefore they've lost away. I think there are a few concerns for Provence. They really haven't started as well as perhaps we thought they might. And so a few concerns, but Béziers, on the other hand, I think have started pretty well. Find themselves in second and seem to have picked up where they left off with playing some great rugby, both up front and out the back. So yeah, pretty good for Béziers.
Proper side. And finally, but obviously by no means least, Brive. We were at the Stade Amédée Domenech. Yeah,
we're talking of budget discrepancies. This was, as we previewed, Brive Aurillac was the highest budget versus the lowest budget, so 17 million versus 5.5 million, over 3 times, and it looked a bit like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Aurillac, I wouldn't say were, until kind of towards the last 20 minutes, they weren't totally sort of blown away, but they kind of could have been. They just looked a little bit. They just looked a bit smaller, a bit less powerful up front, which I don't think is anything to be particularly ashamed of, given the given the size of the Brive pack. And I think they did probably see it as an opportunity to rest a few guys. They're home next week to Béziers, I think. And I think they're probably, well, we may have even heard they're possibly lining that one up a little bit more. Played some nice sort of shapes in the backs, but ultimately just couldn't hang on to the ball for long enough. Brive, on the other hand, I think you'd probably agree, looked like they got most bases covered.
Yeah, well, I think just on the budget thing, like you're right, they just look smaller. It looked like a team that had everything in Brive and a team that didn't have much, but were pretty well drilled and well organised because they didn't have much. Like they were doing pretty well with the resources they've got, but they just didn't have the power or the dynamism or the sparkle to match Brive. I think and ultimately their tries, like there was an intercept from Courtney Laws, but the other two were a couple of breakaway ones. Fullback, I think it's Papuashvili missed one in front of the sticks on the 22 as a penalty. So that's something they probably need to sort out. They've lost Antoine Ocagne, who was really good for Perpignan for 68 minutes in the game we saw, but to lose a 10 and a 10 that's going quite well in the top 14, that's going to obviously have a blow. But yeah, Brive, where do you want to start with Brive?
Well, I think just got a bit proper star quality, haven't they, across the board? Like the pack is huge. You've got a kind of proper talisman in Courtney Laws in there, and then you've got pulling the strings Kerwin Bosch, who looked at times like he was playing a totally different game, complete control. You know, pulling the strings and kicking goals and kicking penalties from 61 meters or whatever it was just before half time.
He's trotting off the pitch as soon as he hits that. It's incredible. Like, I've watched the video that I've got, and people might have seen it on our socials. The video of him slotting it from 55, 60 meters, and as soon as he strikes it, he's just trotting off the pitch, and it just kind of it's one of those ones that almost like gathers pace halfway through its trajectory just to get it over the post. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, some strike, and then they've got proper dynamism, pace. Like Ferte looked unreal.
He's the real deal, isn't he? I think he's the real deal.
He looked fabulous. Yeah, I haven't got masses more to add. They just look like a team that, albeit against the side that were missing a few and were always kind of under the pump. I don't know. The nature of the ProD2 season would suggest there'll be lots of twists and turns, but I think they are, I don't know, 4 games in, they feel like the team to beat and then some, particularly with how the likes of Provence have started.
Yeah, I think because they do have pretty much everything covered, just on the kind of highlights of this game. So people may have seen the top 5 tries from the round, included one from, I think is he called Retief Murray? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Which is kind of coast to coast almost, off a line out or a scrum, but it's Matisse Ferte that gets the ball on the outside and shows some unreal gas to make the yards and make the territory. The ball he throws back inside as well, like watching it, because that was right in our corner, basically, wasn't it? Where he kind of hit the Jets and kind of did that offload. The ball, it kind of just feels like when he passes it, it's like, well, there's no one there, and it actually lands perfectly in the arms of one of the support runners. But also his kicking, and then the kind of finds its way out to Retief Murray. But that was a kind of so many members of the team involved in that try, and just showed the kind of cross the board quality that Brive have got. Ferte's kicking was brilliant. He just looks so comfortable. I'm intrigued to know how far down the pecking order or how far off the radar he is for the France team, because it is a different level, like ProD2 to top 14. But Jaminet came from ProD2 straight into the France team, didn't he? So,
yeah. Sort of wonder if that tour to Argentina had been, I don't know, in November or something, whether he might get a sniff then.
Well, there is no event. Well, I guess in the pecking order, there is no Jaminet for a bit. So it's kind of Ramos, Barret, possibly him, like he looks so good.
Yeah, maybe. You'd hope Buros would be up there, but he doesn't seem to have piqued his interest, does he? But yeah, I agree. He just looks like a fabulous player. He's played a lot. Like he played over sort of 30 games last year, I think, and he played all the under 20s. Like he's got proper game time under his belt, and he played a few games. He's played obviously on the wing. He's played 15. I think he's played a couple of games at outside centre as well. So I
think he also in the World Cup came off the bench to play at 9 a bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean that sort of thing, without being too dry about it, can only be good at that age, to that much game tape, that much experience in different positions. Yeah, he's a good one.
But let's hope that he kind of stays at 15 predominantly, because that the kicking game, the pace just seems so suited. He's pretty good under the high ball as well. The other player that I absolutely loved watching in this game, who is a player I used to love watching for Scotland, Sam Johnson, is still really good. It was kind of, I guess it's like the kind of Antoine Frisch thing. He kind of had exactly the same game in this game that he would have had for Scotland against Australia or England or a big team. Like his angles of running are great. The timing of his runs is brilliant. he just looks so comfortable on the ball, but his distribution as well, not something perhaps we
Oh,
saw as much as Scotland, but there is one pass that is just, we were straight down the barrel of it. Like, it is just a send. I don't know how it didn't make the tries of that. I guess it's kind of not that flashy, but if you can find the try for Owen Farrell, there is a pass from Sam Johnson that is so good. It's kind of hard
so flat.
It's so flat, and it's more than 30 meters. And we were right down the line of it, and it was dead flat. It's just, again, it's one of those ones that kind of, bit like the Finn Russell one back in the day to Hugh Jones. It kind of seems to just float its way at kind of accelerate at different times to get to its intended target. Yeah, it was brilliant. I guess the cool thing about that, I was kind of reflecting on a cool thing about going to watch ProD2 is, like, because we don't really get to watch the full game. You know, you could there is the full match replay of the Brive game on the ProD2 website if you wanted to watch it. But I mean, there's just so much of it. But to actually go and watch it live and see these guys in action, players that you kind of hear about, you'll see highlights reels or people that you've forgotten about, or certainly to see like Cohen Bosch in the flesh and see it actually how good is this guy. See Courtney Lawes still rocking it in the flesh is cool, but also to kind of see guys that you'd kind of perhaps forgotten about, like Sam Johnson, and just see that they're still so good. And some of these youngsters. I felt like it was just really cool to be watching those guys, like a team that has got a lot of hype and a lot of expectations this season. To see them at full strength and kind of live up to that hype was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they looked pretty serious, I think it's fair to say. It's good evening out, and we'll maybe refer to that in our little midweek special, talking about some of the travel, the towns, the bars, the cities, the slightly unusual après match shenanigans and so on. But looking ahead to next week, so Brive go to Mont-de-Marsan, which you'd think they would fancy.
Yeah.
The other games that stand out for me are Biarritz host Grenoble. Obviously both teams going really, really well. Biarritz seem, if not resurgent, then certainly a changed team to last year and very different early season fortunes. And the other one which looks really interesting is the late kickoff on Friday, which is Provence hosting Aurillac. Aurillac Béziers, as we just mentioned. I
think Aurillac
a few
might
others
win
in
that
there.
Provence one, you know. I think that'll be the real test of where Provence are, because they've been away to Grenoble and lost narrowly. To get a big team at home in a kind of showpiece Friday night game, that will kind of really see where we're at. Another team that it'll be an interesting game to see where they're at. It feels like one of the more winnable games for Valence to have Agen at home.
Yeah,
Agen have started relatively well, so I mean, if Valence lose that, then 0 from 5, and they've lost a couple of pretty, they've not had a particularly tough set of fixtures either. And you're looking down the barrel then, aren't you, already?
Yeah, for sure. Also in the Aurillac game, could already be gone. Joe Alab, the coach, heavily linked with the England defence coach role. Not sure Aurillac's defence has been amazing, although they did concede only 3 points to Nice on Friday night, so that gets them the jobs.
He's head coach, also, though, isn't he? He's not defence coach.
He is, yeah. He is, but he's been linked with a defence coach role for England.
Whereas the other person linked with it, their defence has not been good this season anyway. Paul Gustard, and who is defence coach at Stade Francais. Obviously, they were brilliant last year defensively, but they have looked quite worse. That's terrible English, but not very good.
hasn't looked particularly watertight, has it? Joe Alapta as well was Steve Borthwick's flatmate at uni. So whether that has much to do with it. Apparently he was. I read earlier. Yeah, he was an usher at his wedding. So look, we got the Lancasters, we got the Borthwick Alabt alliance. Like, these are all just shows, we can all dream if we've got friends in higher places.
I think Fabien Galtier's son is like second choice scrum half at Colomiers. So if we suddenly see him in the France team, we know that Nepo Rugby is
alive and well.
Not to be confused with Nepo Laulala. As far as I know, no nepotism there. Although I think he was related to Casey Laulala. Anyway,
sounds suspicious to me.
Who I think is now an estate. No, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But I think I saw Casey Laulala is now an estate agent. But yeah, that's completely irrelevant for French rugby.
But should we wrap it up there? We'll regather tomorrow, spin a few yarns, and look ahead to another good week. So
we'll talk about our trip, and we'll go into the details of kind of all the stuff around the game, as well as kind of a bit of the in-game atmosphere, and kind of discuss where they rank in terms of the whole experience. Talk about our itinerary, some good restaurant and bar recommendations. I think we'll also dive into the Nuit de Rugby, so the Top 14 awards, and actually no, French Rugby awards for the whole of last season. So that'll be a bit of that, and then presumably a bit of Petit Fours and Digestifs being pushed back to tomorrow as well, Rich.
Bonus content.
Gonna have to digest today's. Gonna have to digest today's content all by yourself, listeners. No, nothing to ease it down this week or this episode.
It's just very, very strong French rugby themed medicine. We'll have some levity tomorrow. You can follow, subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter /X. I think that's it. Threads.
There's plenty of. We tried to get as much of the kind of best stuff from the weekend out on Instagram and TikTok. So if you do want to kind of see what we're on about ahead of tomorrow or ahead of the next episode that you might listen to in your feed, then check us out and follow. Give us a follow.
Do your homework. All right. I've been Richard. That has been Rob. We've been the Rosbifs. We'll be back tomorrow. Au revoir for now.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.